So thanks very much for coming and chatting to us. I'm Rachel. I'm an art director for DT, and this is Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm Lindsay. I'm a solution architect at DT for our engineering team.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
That's fantastic. So people must ask you this all the time about, being a girl in tech and what's it like being a girl in tech, considering one of the first programmers in the world in the 1800s was a woman, and that was a really progressive industry. It was breaking ground, obviously, a long time ago. What do you think we've got from that position where there was a lot of women programmers back then, 100 years ago, into less now?
That's a good question. So yeah, we actually celebrate Ada Lovelace. We have Ada Lovelace Day in the U.S. now, so it's really exciting. So I think back in the day, women were at home or they were studying and they were really focused on their work. So I think it was encouraged to be behind a lab or in a closed room, and that is really what you need in terms of being a scientist or a chemist, or somebody who's a researcher. There's a lot of female researchers. And I think that she was just sort of testing out different coding models and researching with different analytics programs, and it stuck. She really enjoyed it, and she started her coding languages, right? But I think after it was commercialized and adopted in normal society and institutions as a major and as something that is now impacting everyone's lives, everyone started getting involved, and men started sort of adopting that as a really viable business for themselves. And I think because it's always been a patriarchal society with finance, and I think it starts with the finance sector, venture capital and old school banking, that is where people receive the fuel and the funding to launch their technology companies. And that trend, or that I guess reputation or vibe, I can't think of the right word, just translated into the tech world, which is devastating because it is a very macho, hostile culture where women are treated as second-class citizens. And everybody that I've spoken to that has reached an executive level and had to be the only female in the room was treated not fairly. So they weren't listened to, they were made fun of, they weren't respected. There's something called man mode, which I have felt like I had to do, just wear a pantsuit and talk differently and present differently, just not be ourselves. And that is something that will not make you happy in the long term. So it has changed because society has really implanted these views that it is a patriarchal society, and we can only succeed and innovate if it's men at the helm, unfortunately.
So Girls in Tech really focuses on a space from university to kind of middle management. Often the problem occurs that people kind of drop out of their chosen career for a little bit of time because they're choosing family and they're not quite sure about re-entering the workforce, or that may be a little bit prohibitive. What about the women who need that push up? Because if you're a smart, intelligent woman and you've been given some opportunity, chances are you are going to meet that middle management run. How do you get up? Like, how do you get there? And especially in Australia, where there isn't as much focus on mentoring here in this country, what advice do you give? I know the organisation that you're putting together focuses on that age bracket. Mm-hmm. How do you get from middle management, where we might be, to cracking that partner level, say for example at a company like DT?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. Actually, I would probably say it is the largest problem in tech, because you have all of these up-and-coming gems, very experienced, brilliant women that have been staples to the startup or the tech company, and then they get to a certain level, and it's in the United States, it's 40% of middle career women drop out. And they feel that they're isolated because it's a very male-dominated culture, and they most likely they will have probably like 90% and the executives tend to be all men. So the communication style is differently, the work style is different. But I think what's more important than that is the type of programs that are there in place for women. So whether it is work-life balance, different types of benefits, being able to telecommute, work from home, having paid leave, longer paid leave, or even having paternal leave, right? Being given options. And the issue right now, what we're seeing is that women that are in that 40%, and they take 3 months paid leave or 3 months maternity leave, it's very hard for them to come back to work. So either they've been replaced or they don't save that space for them. They figure out a way to run without that person and their talents. And that's really sad, because that means that they have to choose. They can't have the work and be an executive and then leave for 3 months. So at that point, you're at a juncture. Do I want to have children? Do I want to freeze my eggs? Do I want to continue working as an executive because I've worked so hard? Now what? Now I'm all of this for nothing. And then it is, that's one part of it. The other side of it is management. So we see a lot of executives that are more technical focused have issues with managing big teams because that's not what they're used to. That's not what they're trained for. So if you have somebody who's used to coding and solving problems and really creating a product or building some code and software program, and they are fulfilled when they finish that product, that is what makes them happy. That is what makes them excited about achieving certain things, but not managing a team, and it becomes exhausting. I have to do my work, make sure the product's functional, manage the team that are mostly men, and many, many times, even my female friends that are CEOs that are technically focused, brilliant, the guys on their team, younger, they don't follow orders, they don't listen to, because she's a woman. She's a woman. And she has a lot of beef. She's like, I don't know how to maneuver this. It's one of those things that, social etiquette is seriously lacking, and it's hard to train an old dog new tricks, and it's a gender thing, So it is challenging.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I'm kind of in feeling like I'm moving into that space, and I've been at DT for a while now, and it's a really diverse sort of company. We've got many different types of people with different skill sets and things like that. But I've just kind of noticed, in our technology space, we've got only 4 women in our whole engineering team, and before we had a really sort of very vibrant team of with a great mix. And I'm just wondering, how do companies help cultivate that, and not see that kind of drop off, that's kind of
very carefully. So they have to put money, funds, and resources to it. In Silicon Valley, and the startups have chief people officers, or chief talent officers, or chief fun officer, and really those people are put into the company so that they can make sure employees are happy, that the culture is solid, that people have what they need so that they can focus on being productive and doing what they love to do versus worrying about things that are external things, issues, what he said, the email he sent me, or whatever it is. So it's about enforcing certain policies. It's about encouraging creativity. It's about providing different ways to think. It's about social etiquette. I mean, it's really weird to have to train adults on social etiquette, but it has to be done. Some people have never been taught that. And it's about integrating certain training programs from the management and executive level so that they know how to treat their female employees and how to fairly, in a fair way, provide a trajectory for leadership and get them in those higher roles and retain them. So I think there's so many things that can be done. It's just a matter of creating a very productive and nice work environment where everyone respects each other, and just being accountable for that. Because there's, like the woman said during the session, there's so many people who do it for PR reasons. And now we're being really transparent. This morning I was thinking about, you know what, I just should write a list, because I know who is like actually activating, money and resources to increase the pipeline and make things like awesome for women in tech. I know that list is very short. I can count them on two hands. So it's important for us to highlight those people and or those companies and those people, those employees, to hopefully spread the seed and hold people accountable to being a part of the solution.
Adriana, we know you're on a really tight schedule. If I could just ask you one more quick question, and I think this is really important. In Australia, we don't really have a culture of mentoring here. If you would mind giving us some quick insights into how young people starting out in their career, especially women in Silicon Valley, go about cultivating those relationships, and how do you hold on to them from one workplace to the next, and you're moving internationally, or you just maybe moving from one job to the next? How do you do that? How do you build those relationships? And what is mentoring for someone who's a junior designer, for example? How do they go about finding a mentor, and what's the benefits?
So I would say the most important thing is to network. Get involved in organizations, go to networking events, go to meetups, interact with folks at conferences, really follow the women that are the leaders in the industry, people that you look up to. Really get to know more about them and why they've succeeded. And I'm sure that they'd have tidbits of information that could help you in your career. And then hopefully you'd be able to engage with that grouping of, it could be women or men, that can help you in your career. And mentorship is not about asking somebody, will you be my mentor? Yay, let's go to coffee once a quarter. It's about that mentor seeing something in you based on what you build. So it has to be very organic from the bottom up. You're really aspirational. You've made certain achievements. You're really focused on launching your startup. You're in the know. You're networked. They see your passion, and they have to see something in you, and they also have to see something in you that they see in themselves. So it's a very interesting psychological dynamic, which I think has to happen organically, because it's very contrived if you say, will you please be my mentor? It never works out that way.
So do you recommend that women send the elevator back down and continue that support for other women? Like, I know sometimes we're competing against each other. Do you?
100%. I would say in my first job at JWT, Hill & Knowlton, I was sort of thrown out there. And I'm like, okay, this is my first job. It's a little scary. I'm just spaghetti on the wall, seeing what sticks. But I think it was two women that saw some potential in me, and they took me under their wing, and they wouldn't let me fail. So it takes, again, the accountability. It takes people sacrificing the time, paying it forward. We have to be a pay-it-forward community to make sure that the future generation has the resources and opportunities that we did. And that's just about that's probably the most important thing in terms of building a tech ecosystem, because the talent exists. It's just a matter of getting people so excited and passionate about helping each other and helping the younger generation, and it will happen.
Adriana, thank you very much for coming and chatting to DT. We really look forward to seeing Girls in Tech here in Australia, hopefully this year, next year.
This year.
Thank you
3
so
months.
much.
Thank you.